Hello and welcome to the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for September 16th, 2019. My name is Scott. I go by Tan Newt online, and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. Every week we have this community meeting on the Adafruit Discord channel. Everybody is welcome to attend, so if you are interested in that, you can go to the URL adafru.it/discord. You may say, oh, well, what is CircuitPython? Well, CircuitPython makes it easy for beginners and everyone else to program microcontrollers, which are little tiny computers. We've been going for about 3 years now, which is super exciting. And we have this meeting at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Mondays. Everybody is welcome to join. We like to hear what everyone is working on related to CircuitPython and not CircuitPython. So to join, go to the URL I just said. And yeah, this meeting happens once a week on Mondays. If it's a U.S. holiday on Monday, we'll tend to either cancel the meeting or push it back a different day. And if we do that, we put that in the CircuitPython text channel on our Discord. If you, wow, can you tell I was up till like 2 a.m. last night? This meeting is run in 5 parts. We first start off with community news, where we go over the highest level of what's going on in the community that we've seen. We follow that up with the state of CircuitPython and the libraries, which is a statistics view of how the project is going. So how many people are involved and what sort of activity is happening. It kind of is meant to ground us in reality. After that, we have Hug Reports, which is a chance for us to say thank you to folks for the work that they've been doing within our community. We'll do that as a round robin, where I will start and we'll go through the list of all the folks in the voice chat. If you are text only, let us know. Basically, we won't wait for you to speak up over the mic. And if you are just listening, let us know that you're lurking and we'll mark you as such as well. And we'll just skip over that. If you are unable to make the meeting, you're still welcome to drop Hug Reports and status updates in the note stock that we send out earlier, and we'll read those off even if you don't make the meeting. So I spoiled it a little bit, but after Hug Reports, we have status updates, which is again a round robin where we say, this is what I was working on in the last week, and these are the things I hope to do in the coming week. It's a good way for us to kind of keep on track of who's doing what and give tips or tricks to each other about the work that we're doing. And then lastly, we have In the Weeds, which is a section for us to have any longer form discussions or debates about questions that people have, or different choices that we need to make as a community. This meeting is recorded. So I'm recording both the video of the CircuitPython text channel and the audio from the voice chat. That will be posted on the Adafruit YouTube, which is youtube.com/Adafruit, and it will go on, what's it called? Wow, my brain. So check YouTube for that. Diode Zone. Yes, thank you, Jeff. Yes, Diode Zone. I put those up there as well. It's a YouTube alternative if you want to try something else out like that. And it's under my account on Diode Zone. That's diode.zone if you're looking for it. Let's get into it. This is gonna be a fun ride. We'll get into what I was doing late last night a little bit later in my status update. But for now, I will take a time code that goes in the notes so that you can see where in the video we talked about certain things, and hand it off to Phil for community news.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Okay, first up, speaking of Scott, Hansel Minutes Technology Podcast, Learning CircuitPython with Scott is posted up. Scott Hanselman is one of my favorite podcasters. He's been doing this like as long as I have, and he visited recently. And one of the first questions I said is like, how do you keep doing this? And we talked about that. And basically, we don't really know anything else to do. So, that's the main reason. But it's an excellent interview with Scott, and it's up on, we post it on our blog, and it's also in the newsletter. Congratulations to everybody here. We are now up to 14,028 humans. Yay. So I think July 2019 we hit 13,000, and now we're up to 14,000. So thank you everyone for making this a really fun, great community. It keeps attracting lots of folks that want to have young people, developers, and get together and share projects. So thanks for that. Next up, call for proposals for PyCon 2020. It's in Pennsylvania. We'll probably be doing something again. If you want to do a talk there, especially about hardware, they're looking for folks. Go and check that out. We have some CircuitPython.org updates. We are no longer putting the previous libraries up there, the 2 and 3. You can always get on GitHub, but the most recent ones are there. So have those. And then also today, we'll probably have a couple more updates on circuitpython.org/downloads. Maker Melissa is working on those. And my favorite headline to write, CircuitPython snakes its way to the ST. I must have not gotten a lot of sleep either. It's contagious to the STM32, and we'll have some of those boards listed up there shortly as well. Carlos posted up a bunch of Python on hardware community showcase photos on Twitter. We included that in our newsletter. Check those out. That's from PyCon UK. We were keeping track of that on Twitter and retweeting, and then we also had that in our newsletter. And then there's a CircuitPython book coming out in Japan. The pinout inserts are done, and then also the author made this really cool video that shows you all the things that are in the book. We'll have it in our store, and eventually, if there's translations, we'll stock it. We'll stock it either way. That is out, or will be out soon. And then, as always, if there's anything to add, we have a little bit of time before the newsletter goes out tomorrow. You can also at us anytime. You can also email us. You can let us know in the notes. There's a million different ways. If there's any Python on hardware news, in particular projects you're working on and more, let us know. And that is the community news.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil.
Scott.
Okay, let's go on to the state of CircuitPython. This is a statistical overview of the health of the project. First and foremost, overall, we had 13 pull requests merged by 9 authors, 6 reviewers. All of those authors look familiar to me, so no particular shoutouts, but thank you again to all 9 authors. We also had 6 reviewers, which is really cool. That number's growing, which is always good. Issues-wise, we had 11 closed issues by 7 people and 12 opened by 9 people. So we're net up 1, but, that's pretty good. Not gaining a whole lot. And then overall, let me think. We just released 5.0 Alpha 4. We did Alpha 3 as well, but there was one kind of tooling change between 3 and 4. So I recommend 4. We actually managed to release almost all of the assets on Alpha 4, so take a look at that. And I should remember what Alpha 3 and 4 included, but my mind is still asleep apparently. 4X is going well. We may do a bug release just because we've had a couple boards and a couple bug fixes, but and so if you think that's urgent, let me know, but I don't think it's that urgent. But yeah, we're just heads down on 5.0 work, BLE work in particular, and we should see a lot of cool things come from that soon. So let's talk about the core. The core is just the C code that runs CircuitPython stuff. We split this out from overall, which includes libraries, and we'll go into libraries in just a second. But for the core, we had 6 pull requests merged from 4 different authors, and we had 4 reviewers as well. So thank you to all those folks. We have 13 open pull requests. So if you're interested in helping out with the core, a great way is to just try the pull request versions of stuff. And in fact, with our switch to GitHub CI, people may not realize this, but you're actually able to, if you go into a pull request, click the latest like red X or green check mark for the latest commit, and you can actually download like the UF2 files from that build. So to test a PR, you don't actually need to set it up or like download it to your local machine and build it yourself. You can just grab the assets from there. So that's really handy if you just want to try stuff. So pro tip. Um, Issues wise, we had 3 closed issues by 2 people and 10 opened by 8 people. That's pretty dramatic, and it seems like we have some work to do there. If I skip down a little bit, we have 6 issues not assigned to milestones. So those are the ones that are likely new and the ones that we should take a look at. And total, we have 185 open issues. So there's a link in the notes doc to all of those. Downloads wise, we have 4.10 as our latest stable release, which has been out for a number of weeks. We've had 6,757 total downloads, and our current unstable release that I released yesterday is 5.0 Alpha 4, and we've had 0 downloads of that. I'm not sure when this statistics run actually happened, so it might have been like right after that happened. But yeah, so that'll change over the coming week for sure. I encourage people to try it. It shouldn't be that unstable, but some of the APIs will be changing, so just keep an eye out for that. We also have download stats by language in the docs, but I will not go over the details of that. And okay, so Anic data is downloaded a bunch of times and had no problems. So yep, those download numbers are a little out of date. So we'll see that next week. Okay, let's kick it over to Kattni for libraries.
Thanks, Scott. So on the libraries, and this is across all of the CircuitPython libraries, we had 7 pull requests merged by 5 different authors and 4 different reviewers. So thanks to everybody who has been contributing to the libraries. We currently have 32 open pull requests, which is about where we've been hovering lately. And some of those are long-term in terms of work in progress sort of things. Others of them are new, and others of them just we need to look into it. So there's a list of those in the notes. As for issues, we had 8 closed by 5 people and 2 open by 2 people. So we are net down at 143 open issues, and there is a link to circuitpython.org to see a list of the issues, which is only updated weekly at the moment, but we are working on fixing that so that we can use it to better track our issues and pull requests. Updated and new libraries in the past 7 days. We had 1 new library and it looks like 4 updated libraries, and those are listed in the notes as well. If you're interested in contributing, libraries are a great place to start. You can take a look at any one of these open PRs, and if there's something in there that you see, or if you're only able to look at syntax and not test it, just put a comment in there and say that you looked at it, it looks good to you, but you didn't test it. Even if you can't, you can absolutely still review things. And if you can test it, even better, you can test out any one of these PRs and make a note that you did so, and we can at that point move forward with it. If you are new to Git and GitHub, we have a guide for that, and we are also available all week in the CircuitPython chat channel on Discord, and we're absolutely happy to help you get through learning how to do that so that you can start contributing to CircuitPython. So check all that out, and if you're interested, let us know. And that's where we are with the libraries.
Awesome. Thank you, Kattni. Thank you for closing all those issues. Keeping us overall net neutral. Okay. Hug reports. This is a section where we have a chance to say thank you to folks for the work that they've been doing in our community. It can vary from community support stuff all the way down to projects or blog posts or things like that. So take a moment and think about what you're happy to see other people doing and thank them for that. I will start. We're going to do this as a round robin. I mentioned it earlier, but I'll just reiterate again. I will start, and then we'll circle back through the list of folks in the voice channel. If you don't want to participate at all, you can say you're lurking. You'll just listen in. If you don't have a microphone or don't choose to speak, you're welcome to just say text only and either post it in the text channel or in the notes doc, and I'll read it off. And then if that's not the case, and you have a microphone, I'll call on you and you can go, and you can predict it. We go in order. So let's do that. Okay. All right, so for me, first and foremost, thank you to Jeff Epler for helping merge PRs. Just gave him merge access and already have been merging one thing, so that's awesome. So thank you for doing that. As you know, like reviewing can be a bottleneck, so really happy to see Jeff stepping up for that. Thank you to Drew Festini. Saw a note from him about talking with some of the Linux kernel devs about their GPIO library interfaces and things that Blinka uses. So it was really thoughtful of Drew to talk about it kind of to those folks on our behalf and on Blinka's behalf. So thanks to Drew. Thank you to Mikey, Sedacious, and Carter for forum answers. Was checking it yesterday, and everything seemed to have been dealt with. So that was really, or responded to. That was really nice to see. Thank you to Jerry Carter, Mr. Certainly, and Andon for some Discord modding. I've been doing less and less of that, and it helps to see folks like those four and others having discussions and keeping an eye on things. So really appreciate that. Lady Ada, just huge shout out to her in general, but she's really good at testing stuff and finding things that break and kind of just closing the loop on, oh, I did this thing, and then validating that both what that thing does and the other things still work. So that's really, really handy to have that closed loop from her. And then lastly, shout out to Dan, who's not in the meeting because he's on vacation, but he's in vacation here in Seattle with me and got to spend all Friday afternoon hanging out with him and his family. And that was really good. And we did get some time to brainstorm like the future of CircuitPython and what he's interested in and stuff too. So all good things. It's going to be really cool to just continue to see CircuitPython grow as a community and as a project, and see all the different places and all the different things that people do with it. So thank you to everybody. Let's circle around. And Anecdata is text only, I believe. Is that right? So Anecdata says, huge group hug. I'm continually impressed with this community. Always learning, always pressing forward, keeping it positive. There's so much talent in this community. So thank you, Anecdata. Let's go to Brent.
Hello. One to Hierophect for their work on the STM port. I haven't used it yet, but I'm really excited to. Scott for his podcast appearance. I was walking to class on Thursday and I saw it pop into my feed. I'm like, oh, cool. I'll listen to this on my way. And then Lapo Lucchini on GitHub for their web-based ASN.1 decoder. It's helping me get through some code that I'm working on, and visual structure decoders are really nice, and especially web-based ones.
Yeah, have you seen Kaitai Struct?
I haven't.
Yeah, I recommend it. I think that's similar to what you're talking about.
Gonna go Google it.
Do it. All right. Thanks, Brent. Oh, that's Don echoing back. Don, can you mute, please? That works. No? In Discord on the bottom left, next to your name, there's a microphone icon. If you click that, it'll mute it. All right. I muted you temporarily on my side. Okay. C. Grover says, group hug to the team and community this week. Amazing progress. Awesome. Thank you, C. Grover. Okay, let's unmute Don K and see if he's got it settled up.
No, I'm just lurking here, but I'm trying to turn off my mic.
Okay, well, I heard you say that, which is cool.
Go ahead and mute me for now. I'm just going to be lurking for the day.
All right, thanks for joining. Okay. All right, Don's lurking, and let's go to Hierophect.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm having the mic out today. Okay. So today I am, a big thanks to Lady Ada for testing yours last week, and for Scott for checking them out and merging some of them. So yeah, hope to make more progress on this week.
Awesome. Thanks, Hierophect. All right, Jason P.
Right, well, thanks to Dan for the CircuitPython guide, building CircuitPython guide. I made good use of that last week. And to Jepler, Tanut, Katney, Sagittac for the build guidance late last week. That was really helpful. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to figure out why the transparency stuff's not working. And hope to help you with that. Okay. Thanks, Jason. Let's go to Jeff Epler.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank everybody reviewing pull requests and helping out on issues. Hug reports to all of you. I wanted to thank Katney for help when we worked together on the Simple IO and NRF PWM bug, which kind of ended up being a bug in two parts, one in each in core and one in Simple IO. And also, thanks, Katney, for using me as a sounding board when you were figuring out that stuff with the mask and the pinout. Thanks to Tanut and Lady Ada for suggesting improvements on my PRs, particularly that Simple IO PR, which I know took a couple of tries before it was done. Thanks to Scott for entrusting me with the ability to merge PRs in the core. And thanks to Phil for a little Japan travel advice.
Nice. All right, Katney.
Hello. So I have a couple of hugs for Jeff for helping me work through finding a library bug and 2 bugs in the core, which he mentioned, and also a hug for merging my PR to the core for a bug fix to the board files for the monster mask. And thanks for helping me test that as well. I want to thank John Park for talking through, giving me a sanity check basically on an issue with the Circuit Playground Bluefruit. I was testing all of the Circuit Playground Express guide code, and the potentiometer code was returning incorrect numbers. And I of course assumed it was, something I was doing, but talked through it with him. He didn't actually have one to test, but it became clear that something was going on with the hardware, and we did figure out it's actually, thanks to Lady Ada, figured out that it's a CircuitPython issue. And then also, finally, a hug to Carter for testing an example that I was missing hardware for. I thought that I ordered everything, but there was one tiny example that used a continuous rotation servo that snuck past me, and so I didn't have one. And he tested that for me so that I could continue on my journey through that guide. So thank you very much for that.
Nice. All right, Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay. First, hug to Nicholas Tollervey for helping me with a bunch of the circuit questions. One for Stephen Warren for all your help with the Jets and Nano issues, and just a general group hug.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. All right.
Yeah.
Mr. Certainly is lurking, but Summersoft is not in the meeting, but says a group hug to everyone. All right. And with that, that's hug reports. Status updates. We do status updates as a round robin, just like we did with hug reports. Gives everybody a chance to speak, which I like. And this time we're talking about a brief, couple minutes about what you've been working on and what you plan on working in the coming week. It's really good for us to keep track of what everyone's doing, and possibly give tips or tricks on the things that people are trying to achieve. So let's do that. And I forgot to take a time code at the start. That's okay. Me. I totally didn't even finish my notes. Okay, so last week I'm deep in the BLE weeds, and there's kind of 2 types of weeds, I guess. One is exactly what the Adafruit BLE library will look like. I want to make it more, my goal is to make it more declarative in the same way that Adafruit Register causes drivers to be more declarative. So I've been playing, and I did some revisions of that, and I will put a link, or if people want a link to my repo there, you can check it out. If you look in my fork of Adafruit BLE, I think I pushed what I had changed. So if you want to take a look at that, that would be cool. It's not completely done. Like some of the examples that Dan has done in the BLE library, I haven't re-implemented yet. So I still have to like I've got to finish the rest of that. So I'm in those weeds. The other weeds that I'm in is the reason I was refining that BLE library is because I was starting to experiment with what the interface is for basically loading the code.py file off of the device and then writing it back. And so I got it to the point where I could like use the Nordic Connect app to just trigger it, sending me back all the data. And I wanted to figure out like how reliable that was. So I was starting on the mobile app side, and I wanted to use React Native because I found this really cool library called Pyrite that does Python source code analysis. So given a Python file, it like parses it, structures it, figures out all the types that it can, which is super neat and potentially really powerful for use on a touch device. So I was up late last night. This is why my brain is not all there. But I was up last night kind of getting myself over this giant hump that I had with how React Native does stuff. But late last night, I got it so that I started the app up. It would connect to the Circuit Playground Bluefruit and then get all of the data back from the device and show it on the screen, just showing the source code, which was a huge hurdle because you have to like scan to find all the devices and then connect to the device. So that was really cool. And I have an idea of kind of how I want to structure the app as well. So that's what I'm doing this week is I need to do email and PRs today and newsletter stuff. So not sure how much time I'll have, but then my goal is to go heads down again and really get it to the point where we're doing the full kind of life cycle journey of load the code.py into like a iOS app. You can just text edit it and it will save, kind of auto save back to the device based on a timer, just like auto reload works. And then it'll rerun. So that is what I'm working towards, trying to get like a minimum like full integration, like vertical slice working with that. And then we'll go from there in terms of where exactly I work. But it's super exciting. I think it's people are going to really like working with their code over like wirelessly like that. So very excited about it. And I guess I should say, since I am planning on going heads down, if there's anything urgent that needs my attention, please like mention me. And it's called Pyrite, Pyright. I think it's a Microsoft repo. On GitHub. Okay. Yeah. So just if you need if something needs my attention, please let me know. If you have PRs, my general pace is to do them in the morning. So if it's not done by noon or 1 o'clock Pacific time, if you have a PR that needs my feedback and I haven't given that to you, then you have and I've had 24 hours, a 24-hour window to do it, please ping me and say like, hey, I'm blocked on this. So that's the deal. And let's circle around. I think that, yeah, Anecdata's lurking, so we'll go to Brent.
Hello. The last week, I spent working on the ATEC crypto chip library, form support, miscellaneous IoT stuff. I had most commands implemented on the chip, working on a CSR, which is their certificate signing request demo. It passes most of its validity tests except for the signature. And I've been kind of narrowing that down today to try to figure out why it's not building that. I feel it's something silly that I'm missing, but I'm not sure because I've looked at a lot of the silly and the more complicated things. And then I also chatted with an Azure dev about first 5 minutes because I listened to Scott's podcast where he mentioned that, and it brought it to the front of my brain, applied to how we do IoT projects with CircuitPython. and where bottlenecks are on starting people with IoT projects and getting their hardware talking to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in the future we'll do a CircuitPython Azure IoT module with the ATEC module and mini MQTT and make it really quick. And
Right.
the main bottleneck is actually from the service, not from the hardware, which is really nice. It used to be from the hardware, but he seemed excited that we could do a lot of the things that they previously do on their service, but on the hardware instead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad you were inspired by that. I haven't actually gone back and listened to it, so hopefully it went well. Okay, Carter's lurking, so we'll go with C. Grover. C. Grover says, nothing major to report CircuitPython-wise. Been heads down in the studio tracking some new songs. Trying to wrap up the album this week, working out the duplicating, packaging, and licensing challenges. Separately, my AD9833 precision waveform generator Featherwing with CircuitPython drivers generated some interest. To support a low-power version of the AD9833 that he had on hand, a maker customized the PCB and ordered some Oshpark boards. Seeing his different perspective gave me some useful ideas. Hurrah for open source. And used my SMD microscope to tune harmonics. Interesting. Awesome. Well, thanks, C. Grover. Okay, let's go to Hierophect.
So this week I'm mostly fixing bugs that popped up last week during the analog I/O and kind of in revamping stuff for STM32. This will get reduced or get resolved without too much trouble. After which I'll be moving on to more module support with bus I/O and SPI and SPI flash and all the other stuff. But for now, just working through the issues that we run into.
All right. Thank you, Hierophect. All right, let's go to Jason.
I was spent a couple days last week, just like I said earlier, learning the build process for CircuitPython, something I hadn't done. So just kind of doing that and coming up with a UF2 that actually worked was success.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then working on this make transparent, make opaque bug. So that involves me trying to understand how all that low-level code is connected and all works, and I'm still in that process. So doing that as I have time. So, if anybody understands that really well, Scott, I'm sure you do. There may be others. I'm not in any hurry, so this is not gating anything. I actually have a workaround for this on the project where I discovered it, that I'm just doing things differently on the CircuitPython side. But I think it would be interesting to solve this problem. But like I said, it's not gating anything.
Right.
So it's kind of as I have time. But it's interesting to be learning how all that stuff works together at the low level.
Yeah, and if you'd like to chat separately for an hour about it, I'm happy to do that too.
That would be excellent. I would love that.
Yeah,
so when you have some time after you get through this next hurdle or this next sort of hump that you've got, just let me know.
Well, that's dangerous because I'm always thinking about something.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I would say if there's a time that's good for you this week, let me know and I'll likely be able to make it work.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Jason. Let's go to Jeff Epler.
Hi again. Last week we got a couple of PRs of mine. So there's now I2S audio out that should work on all NRF boards, although I only tested it with the particle xenon because that's the board that I have set up to work with. There was also a bug with PWM pin reuse that Kattni brought to me. And the thing about that was I realized that I saw that the first day I started working on NRF PWM audio out, wrote it down as an issue to file, and then never did. So I'm glad somebody else found it. We worked on Simple I/O, and then a kind of off-topic thing I've been doing is a way to mirror the console and the REPL to a UART. This is in a form that works. It's in a PR, but it's not at all ready to merge. And Scott, you and I talked about some of the things that we would want before it was mergeable, and thanks for that. I did PR to improve audio stuttering by putting background tasks in disk IO and print. I improved the developer experience when building with debug equals 1. And just yesterday, I looked into the SAMD51 dashes again. I have a revised PR. It's much better. The remaining problem is when you have audio out and it's rapidly changing full scale, then some of the values are glitched. And it's very much data dependent. And it has to be a hardware bug at this point. But there are a couple of workarounds that we might still be able to institute in CircuitPython if we care about it. It only affects synthetic waveforms, like going from 0 to 65,535 counts and back again over and over again.
Right.
So anyway, this week, I've got very limited time. At my day job, we're having a users conference this week, so that totally eats Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the evenings. And then after that, I'll be in Japan for 3 weeks, taking a much needed vacation. So
Yay.
I'll miss like 4 weekly meetings. But before that, I get to try my Feather to Commodore 64 user port board tonight on a friend's Commodore 64. And then in the future, when I come back, I've got a couple of quick modules from SparkFun that don't have drivers that I could find. So that's something to do. And I'll be thinking about changes to background tasks. And it's kind of a question of, are we targeting 5.0 for improvements of background tasks, or are we targeting 6.0? Because that defines the scope of, are we going to go crazy and bring in an RTOS? That's post 5.0. So that's kind of the decision that you have to make before you decide if you're doing a little to make things incrementally better, or you're doing a lot to change everything. And I don't know, Scott, you and I should talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 6, just because I don't think we want.
Okay.
I don't think we want to we want to get 5 out pretty soon, and so
All right.
doing a lot of rework is probably worth doing in 6. I think with 6 we should plan on kind of a longer dev cycle, and we'll merge the latest MicroPython for that as well.
Okay.
But for the BLE stuff, we're kind of targeting November, December for Circuit Playground Bluefruit being more readily available. And so it'd be nice to kind of stabilize around that as well.
Right. That makes sense. That's kind of what I expected to hear. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and most of the quick module drivers that folks have done, I've seen end up in the community bundle. So that's the place to take a look too for those.
All right. I'll look again.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. And enjoy Japan. It's awesome. I've been there. It's cool. All right, Kattni.
All right, so last week started and completed the Circuit Playground Bluefruit guide and testing, which involved going through all of the Circuit Playground Express code and making sure it ran on the Circuit Playground Bluefruit because it should just work the same way. Naturally, it did not in a number of cases. We found a bug in the pinouts. One of the pins was assigned the same pin as another pin. And also there was a pin alias that didn't exist that was in there that doesn't exist on the board. So we got that all fixed up after a lot of banging my head against why it was working correctly in one way and not in another way. And then found a bug in PWM and also in Simple IO that sort of work together to fail. And also an issue with the analog reference is, I believe, what it's called in CircuitPython, that tells CircuitPython the maximum voltage allowed in from an analog input, which should be 3.3, but right now it's peaking at 3.0. So HID mouse doesn't work because it expects a 3.29 maximum, and it's not receiving that. So the mouse example doesn't quite work. So we either are going to update the core to resolve that issue, which would be the most ideal solution, or we need to do some commented out lines in the demo to drop the max and make the code work. So we'll see how that goes. And then once that was all done, or as done as it could be, I did the pinouts page for the Monster Mask guide and found a bug in the board def for that as well. and also Touch IO was not enabled in the build, and there's a capacitive touchpad on the board. So I worked with Jeff on that. Thank you very much for all your help there, including a very fast test build, which I was able to load on the board and immediately had Cap Touch on the touchpad. And also there was two connectors that were assigned to the wrong pins. And so we fixed those two, and both those connectors work successfully now. So that I put in a PR for that, and that's been merged. I did not expect to find a bug doing the pinouts page, but hey, I was on a bug hunt last week, I guess, because I also found a bug in the Learn system itself while working with it. So bug week last week, hopefully not this week, but turns out I'm doing the Hollowing M4 guide this week, and that involves going through the Hollowing M0 guide and testing all the code. So probably going to be another bug week. Today is Library Monday. I know for a fact there's at least one library that needs to be released that hasn't been. There are probably more. And so we need to go through that and make sure that we're as up to date as we can be. And so that's what I will try to do today. And then after I do the Hollowing M4 guide, which is next on my list, I will be doing, I'll be adding to the Circuit Playground Bluefruit guide Bluetooth examples, because we mirrored everything that made sense from the Circuit Playground Express guide, but there is obviously more features crammed into the Circuit Playground Bluefruit with our Bluetooth capabilities. So we're going to add 3 different Bluetooth examples, which will also be good because it means that we're testing the Adafruit CircuitPython BLE library. And though discussion says that the API is going to change a bit, we're going to keep the pages, the Learn pages themselves, as vague as possible. And that'll allow for the examples to easily be updated and not require a lot of documentation changes as the API evolves. So we will be doing a color picker, a Bluetooth keyboard, and using the Bluefruit Connect app plotter capability to plot the light sensing and temperature from the Circuit Playground Bluefruit. We're starting with color picker because that one should be the easiest, and then going through the rest, and we'll be adding single pages to the guide, the overall guide for those. And other than that, that is what I've got going on this week so far.
Nice. Thank you, Katney.
Oh, and if anybody has something they're not sure if they should ping Scott with, feel free to ping me. It may be something I can deal with, and then we can leave Scott heads down. And if it's not, I can definitely tell you that it's Scott worthy.
Yeah.
So feel free to ping me with any questions as well. I will be around all week, and can absolutely do my best to answer any questions so that we can try and avoid pulling you out of your headspace.
Cool.
So anyway,
yeah,
that's it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go to Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay, so last week I finished up the Blinka Jetson Nano guide. I worked on fixing a bug with the Neo Trellis and Seesaw. I fixed some other miscellaneous Blinka issues, and I split out the ST7735 Arduino examples for several of the boards, like the Halloween M4 and the a couple other boards. And I started working on a Circup guide, and I updated the SNCC board images on CircuitPython.org. This week I'll be finishing up that Circuit guide, and I'll add I'm adding a few of the CircuitPython.org boards that were missing, and that should be done here shortly. I'll fix and update a few more of the issues and guides, and I am going to start working on the SSD 1305 display IO drivers.
I think Sedacious might have done the 1305 display driver.
Okay, I had a to-do on that, so I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I saw the repo be created. And I think...
Okay, I'll talk with him.
Yeah, I think he just basically copied the 1306 and did that. One thing,
Okay, cool.
Melissa, one thing we could start talking about, and we'll have to run this by Lemore, is actually doing a Blinka display I/O.
Oh yeah, I know. I was kind of waiting for things to settle down, but Carter created a ticket for that, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think we're near the, like, I've basically stopped working on it, so I think it's probably a good time to do it.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
one bug I have to fix, or a couple bugs I have to fix, but that won't change the API.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, we can talk a little more about that. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Okay. 45, 41. I'm gonna read Summersoft, and then we'll go to Deshipu. XI, if you wanna have hug reports or status updates, just type in the CircuitPython text chat, and I'll call you after Deshipu. But for now, let's do Summersoft. Summersoft's said 2 weeks ago on Adabot, started working on days open metrics for library issues and PRs. Started working on library infrastructure check to standardize labels available, like good first issue and bug, etc. And also started working on circuitpython.org/libraries updater to upload AWS S3 via submitting a PR. And also did a little troubleshooting on CircuitPython build tools bundle issues for the community bundle. Last week, spent most of the week blowing my nose and sleeping between day job and dad taxi. Thank you, flu-like illness. Aw. And this week, finish up Adabot work in progress, try a few ideas I had with the community bundle. So thank you, Summersoft. And let's go to Deshipu.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this weekend I went to a hackathon organized by IBM on quantum computing. And I brought some of the QQ devices with me. And we had a team of 4 people together with me. So 3 brilliant physicists and me. And we worked on implementing a game that could be used to teach about quantum gates, basically, quantum computing. It's a 9-dimensional Rubik's Cube done with quantum gates. Yeah, it's a bit difficult to, difficult to start, but once you figure out what each operation does, each of the 9 rotations that you can do, it kind of starts to make sense. So that's a fun little game. Yeah, that's basically all I've been up to. I'm going to have another version of the PewPew M4 device probably next week, but I'm still waiting for the PCBs.
All right.
That's it.
Cool. Thank you. All right, and that is status updates. Now we're going to go in the weeds. In the weeds is a section where we kind of talk about longer form stuff. Can vary from community stuff to detailed technical questions and things. Basically, if you have any topics you'd like to cover, please drop them in the notes doc under this section, or as Carter just did, put it in the CircuitPython text channel and we'll snag it and we'll go in order of things there. So, thank you. Let's get going. First, I'll kick it over to Jason P. for his topic.
And this is just more of an idea, but I don't know if it might resonate with some folks. I see a lot of stuff happening here on the audio side, and I was at a gathering last Monday night of musicians, and I got to thinking about the Pi badge, and I thought, I'm not a gamer, so the Pi badge is cool, but I'm not interested in gaming. So,
right.
But I'm interested in music, and I just thought it'd be sort of an interesting kind of collaborative type of platform, or whether or not you could do something like that. That may make no sense for a million reasons, but it was just an idea that I had sitting there, like looking at the sort of hangout community time.
Right.
If it would be another way for people to engage with technology, but also something kind of cool. Hey, here's how you could go do this for yourself or modify it or kind of introduce people to how they could use some of these platforms.
Right.
Again, thinking of these things as tools for musicians to use. They may not be coders or whatever, but they
Right.
could start learning this stuff because it's in an area that they're interested in. So I have no recommendations on next steps here specifically. I just wanted to share it in case, like I said, it resonated with anyone.
Yeah, I think kind of my brain goes two places. One is I kind of like what C. Grover is talking about is that like there's this mod tracker for Game Boy called Little Sound DJ, LSDJ. And I could imagine somebody re-implementing that in Python and then using it on a PyBadge to do sequencing or mod tracking. That would be super cool. And you could do it like either through MIDI output or through the actual like a audio output on the PyBadge. That's the first thing I thought of. And then the other thing I thought of is the Neo Trellis and just whether that's what you're thinking of. Like something that's like 4x8 buttons and is meant to produce audio and things. So
Yeah. I mean, certainly from an user interface standpoint, that's probably more appropriate. I just like the idea of the badge. I think it's an interesting,
right.
People come up and see it, they can interact with it.
Right.
It's just unique, and I thought that would be cool to be able to do something similar.
Yeah, I wonder
Those
if
are good ideas.
Wonder if you want like I guess you could potentially do something more like a teenage engineering pocket operator where you have a screen at the top and then just a grid of buttons below. But yeah, worth thinking about.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other ideas from folks? All right, let's go on to Carter.
Okay, chipmunk check.
You're good.
Woo! So on my journey with debugging, I kind of went to a setup that kind of made me scratch my head. So I'm curious about this. So like, for example, your basic CircuitPython board, it's got the UF2 bootloader,
right?
And then it's got the CircuitPython firmware. So if you're sitting down with a J-Link or something, you're tied in, and you're debugging, say, the CircuitPython firmware, what do you do about the bootloader that's sitting there also? How do you kind of deal with those two different separate software aspects, or do you even have to?
In general, I don't think you need to, because when you restart with the debugger, it basically runs through the bootloader, and if you happened to stop in the bootloader, it just wouldn't be able to tell you any information. But once it's through the bootloader, you're in firmware land, and it knows about that area of what you're doing.
So you don't need to do anything special when you start up GDB to let it know there's an offset or anything like that?
No, that's contained in the ELF file that you've loaded it with.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. So you just basically the bootloader, you're not debugging the bootloader, so you just let it rip right through it.
Right.
And then you land in firmware land.
Yeah,
and it's business as usual.
You just need to make sure that if your build assumes there's a bootloader, you need to make sure there is a bootloader on it. Like you actually do need a bootloader. Like if you have a fresh chip and you load something but you forget to load the bootloader, like you
sure. Right.
You won't get far.
And that'll be obvious because you won't if you just try it normally, you won't see
right
the UF2 bootloader, or you even won't get the firmware.
Yeah. But you can also do the opposite. You can actually debug the bootloader in the same way, where you load when you start up, you say, I want the bootloader ELF file using the same process. And then
Right. And that's more like what I'd be used to. I mean, that to me, that's just like, here's the one. I mean, the bootloader is yet more firmware. It just sits at 0.
Yep.
So you basically would switch to a different ELF file or something.
Right. It's if you want to be able to get symbols and stuff for both at the same time. I don't remember if I figured that out, but it's a bit trickier. But generally, I'm working on one or the other.
I'm not sure I'm ready to do that yet. I was just curious if all I care about at this point is the firmware. So I was just wondering if there were any gotchas or need tos for setting up GDB, setting breakpoints or anything like that, take into account the offset.
No.
But it sounds like it's got that info in the ELF file.
Yep.
And it kind of just cruises right along.
Yes. Yeah. And then a couple pro tips if you're getting started and you're actually debugging a crash is it's nice to break on reset into safe mode. If you're crashing, and if you're trying to, like, if CircuitPython actually kicks back into safe mode for a bug you're trying to debug, like, you can set a breakpoint on reset into safe mode, and that's really handy.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and I've used that before, but in this case, the firmware isn't actually CircuitPython. I was just using that as kind of an example.
Well, the other thing, then that brings me to the other point of, if you're working on like a new port and you haven't done it, you can break on hard fault handler, which is the handler that gets called if you like dereference a null pointer or divide by 0. That can be really handy. Is the hard fault handler. So.
Okay, doke.
Cool.
Thanks,
Carter. And I haven't seen any other in the weeds. Let's wrap it up. So this has been the CircuitPython weekly meeting for September 16th. We do this every week on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on the Adafruit Discord server, which you can join anytime during the week at the URL adafru.it/discord. We're generally in the CircuitPython text channel all week, and the voice channel during the meeting. Of course, everyone is welcome. We'd love to hear from you. The meeting is recorded, so be aware of that your voice and your text messages are being recorded. It will soon be posted on youtube.com/Adafruit along with Diode Zone, and the links to that are also included in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter that goes out Tuesday mornings. We'd love help with that newsletter if you like writing and like finding cool projects with Python. Reach out to me. I'd love to get you going on that. You could subscribe to that by going to adafruitdaily.com and check the Python for Microcontrollers box there. That's, I think, it. There was one other thing. Oh, I took notes. So, well, everybody's taking notes, and those notes have time codes. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you can check the descriptions of the videos for a link to the notes. So you can skip around if you wanted to like re-listen to some part or another of it. So that's it. Thank you everybody for making it, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.